Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Easy Does It, a podcast created specifically for the amazing members of the MJ team. Rob and I are back with you again, excited for another great episode. Multipliers, part two. I wondered if I was going to say the right thing.
We're on the same wavelength. I like it.
Yeah, I had a moment. Okay, so if you haven't listened to part one, do that. In part one, we defined multipliers and diminishers. We talked a little bit about the qualities of a multiplier. And what else? Oh, we talked about why it's important to be a multiplier.
Yep.
Those types of things.
And then we gave you examples of the first two.
Yes.
Yep. Or not examples, but the actual first two types of multipliers out there.
Yep. So we're going to revisit some of that just so we can recap, but definitely go back and check that one out if you haven't. But
I had so many people say that they loved that one. That was a really good one.
I know. Yeah. And I think the multipliers piece, we talked a little bit about this, it really is kind of written from a management standpoint, but honestly, I think you could apply it in a lot of different parts of your life.
Yeah.
I even wrote a couple of things down today about applying it to parenting. So I hope we can get to that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
Okay. So before we get into all that though, what's the would you rather?
Okay. So this one is, would you rather join a cult or never speak to anyone you currently know ever again?
Okay. Join a cult.
Yep.
Or never speak to anyone I know ever again.
You ain't talking to nobody you know right now, no more. I'll include your family. I'll be nice.
I can talk to them?
You could talk to your family.
Well, I don't want to join a cult. If I can talk to my family and that's it. Ooh.
This is taking you longer than the whole $100 in the toilet, you nasty fool. Dang. I have had more comments about that in the halls. I have random people walking around being like, Rob, I picked $100. I'm like, y'all nasty, man. I can't believe that.
Just telling you.
Yeah. Somebody was like, I would take gloves, I would air it out, and then I would quickly exchange that $100
For another one.
to give it to somebody else. I'm like, yeah, it's messed up.
Okay, I think I'm going to go with talk to my family and nobody else I know.
So join the cult.
No.
You're not going to talk to nobody, but you're not going to join the cult?
I don't want to join the cult. I want to talk to my family, but nobody. You gave me permission to talk to my family and nobody else that I know.
But I feel like if I said you couldn't talk to your family either, then you'd be done on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I would join the cult.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions. What does this cult believe in?
I don't know.
I mean, so the thing about a cult is like, if we're being honest, I'm not really like a free spirit kind of independent kind of girl. So like, as long as they're not weird cult things, I'm not talking about that.
How many cults are not weird?
That's fair. Like I'm a rule following kind of girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like procedure.
You would do good in the cult.
I think I would.
Yeah. You're about to start Groovy Gang cult up in the annex up there.
I think I would be pretty good in a cult because I like that kind of structure.
If you're watching this right now and you're in a cult, hit your girl up. Hit her up right now.
I don't want to do weird stuff in a cult, but you're right. What cult is not weird?
Uh-huh.
But I don't think that it would really. I think what we're learning about me right now is I could easily be sucked into some of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, sound like highly influenced. What is it? Influential. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if I could talk to my family, I would choose that.
Okay.
Just my family, nobody else. That means we couldn't do this anymore.
We could. You just wouldn't know who I was, or I guess you couldn't. We'd have to bring somebody on.
Yeah.
That you didn't know. You just have a new cast.
We do it in the cult.
Yeah. We would do it in the cult. There you go. Now we're thinking. Yes. I think I would choose the cult too because I like all my people.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched any of the stuff on cults? I feel like you have.
I feel like yes, kind of, sorta.
There's some pretty wild stuff out there. What's happened, but then also like how they get you in.
It's crazy.
Let me just go ahead and give you guys a fun fact. If you're trying to avoid being in a cult, number 1, stay away from her. Number 2, stay away from malls.
Oh.
like one of the number one places they do recruitment is at malls.
Huh.
Don't ask me how I know.
Because they've tried to recruit you.
That's where I go to recruit people for my cult.
Oh, now I see why you're asking me this question.
Yes. She's coming to the cult. I there's been a couple guys I've watched and they talk about how they get you into the cult, the questions they ask you, and they usually surprise you with something like some novel question or something to kind of catch you off guard, and then they ask you more questions and figure out how influential you are.
Yeah.
Right. If you're easily influenced.
So I do think, I mean, obviously we won't get down this rabbit hole today, but there is some crazy psychology about how that works.
100%.
About how the manipulation of your thought process there. That's really fascinating. Because you look at these people who do get, and you're like,
how did you get
how could
into
you
that?
do this?
Yeah.
Like, how could you do this? But it's like, it's crazy. That's crazy to me.
It's like they have like little asks. It's like, hey, do you like puppy dogs? Well, of course I like puppy dogs.
Yeah.
And then it's like, cool. Is it okay if we go make a peanut butter and jelly? Can you do it the way that I want to make it? Sure, I'll do that. And then it's like, next thing you know, let's take you in the back room. Once you've once you've been you've accepted the things they do, and then it's like they take you in the back room. Now let's talk about aliens. Like that's where it goes. Eventually, there's the cliff that you jump off. So. Or maybe that'll be our next podcast. We'll talk about cults.
Yeah.
That'll be a good one.
It's fascinating to me.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. But on to multipliers. On to multipliers.
Maybe we're trying to kind of, get people to join the cult of being a multiplier. Because
or the Easy Does It cult. You're on the cult.
Yeah.
You're in the cult.
Yep.
Yeah. You guys are all in a cult.
Yeah.
Welcome.
The Morris-Jenkins Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
Yep.
So multipliers. So we talked about this last time. I think I'm going to use a big word. We would be remiss to, I hope I use that right, to not redefine multipliers, diminishers. I'll hit multipliers real quick. So in this book, Liz talks about being a multiplier. What is a multiplier? These are leaders or people who bring out other people's capability and intelligence. They're genius makers who multiply an organization's collective intelligence, which I think is great. And something that's cool, if y'all haven't checked out the last one, she talks a lot about unlocking people's intelligence and how intelligence kind of is like your talents. I think that's her own variant of talking about that. So how can I identify those talents and extract that and help grow those people? So multipliers, we all could be multipliers, and I'm excited to hear a little bit later about being a multiplier as a parent. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we talked about this too, but one of the cool things about a multiplier from their research, what they found was that multipliers get 2 times the capability of their people, or of the people around them in general. Mm-hmm. We just get more out of people when we're tapping into them in a different way.
Right.
Diminishers, on the other hand, get less than 50% from the people around them. Mm-hmm. And when I think about it kind of in terms of parenting, I don't want my kids to turn out to be not given less than 50%, or my teammates, or the people around me. So a diminisher is kind of that person, and we'll talk about the kind of both sides of that coin today, what it looks like to be a multiplier and a diminisher in different ways. But a diminisher is leaders or people who are so absorbed in their own genius that they stifle others, thus depleting the organization's vital intellectual resources. And one thing we're going to talk, when I hear that, I'm like, that is not me. Or is that really anybody that I necessarily know? But when you go further into it, what you recognize is this piece of accidental diminishing. Because I don't know many people here that are like just so invested in their own selves that they are truly intentionally stifling others.
Right.
But as we will find out later, sometimes it happens, and we might even think that we're doing the right thing or a good thing, but what we're really doing is stifling other folks.
Right. Yeah, I don't think anybody sets out to say, I'm just going to jack this up today.
Yeah, I'm going to diminish.
Yeah, I'm going to crush everyone today. So thinking about how we can multiply and how we can continue to grow the people around us, those 5 different types of multipliers, it's good to recognize there's different ways of doing it. And it seems like we can do a couple of these. Some of us are better at some of these than others. And so the 2 that we talked about last time was being a talent magnet and being a liberator. And so the talent magnet piece, it was kind of cool. It just says hire talented people and develop their strengths fully and remove obstacles to help people succeed. So attracting talent, attracting resources. How can I take that talent and turn it into something amazing? The other side of that we talked about last time was being an empire builder, where it's somebody that hoards resources and people. I almost think it's like your superstar squad, but you end up diminishing those people because you're not utilizing and growing those people as well. So maybe you're a talent magnet. You're able to pick those people out quickly and easily, and you see those talents, and you can use them in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. I think one cool thing about a talent magnet too is like people around you recognize that that's what you are, and they want to work with you. They want to work on your team. They want to be a part of what you're a part of because they see that. They see people being able to, come to work every day and do what they're good at. And that's when you know you're a talent magnet, is when people are trying to be on your team. They want to be a part of it.
Yeah. There's actually a book, Mark recommended it to me because he read it, and I haven't read it yet, but the title is Who, Not How. And I think the premise with that is, instead of being like, let me just tell you how this needs to happen, or I'm going to do it myself, it's who would be good at doing this, and then you champion them to go and tackle it. And so people are capable. They have tons of talents, tons of intelligence, as Liz talks about in this. It's just, I got to find the right person for that project, and you can sit back and grow that person. They get better. Their capabilities grow, and you end up guiding somebody, and it's less work for you. They feel empowered and great about it too.
She calls it something. Is it Genius Watcher? Genius Watcher? Maybe I'm going to just trademark that right now.
Why not?
But not if she's already used it. So she calls it that.
Do not sue me.
I think that's what she calls it. She is watching. It's like she's people watching, but she's looking through the lens of what is their genius? What do they do? What do they naturally do that comes naturally to them that would, if they could do it more, would just make them unstoppable. And so I think that's a cool lens for us to kind of challenge ourselves to look through this lens of like a genius watcher. Let me be looking and watching what everyone's doing to see if I can identify this thing. Because I think we talked about this, we did in the last episode. A lot of people, when you say, what's your genius, or what are your talents, or even what are your strengths, even though we've been asked that question before, most people cannot just like, it's
tough.
Yeah. Like I could maybe bring 1 or 2 things to mind, but I haven't really. So I think even bringing that, watching for it and bringing it to people's attention. So being a genius watcher.
Yeah, for sure.
Something you can try.
Do you want to hit the liberator?
Yeah, because I like that one.
Yeah.
A lot. Okay, so liberators, this is something that multipliers do. They create an intense environment, and we talked a little bit about the difference between an intense environment and a tensed environment. So they create an intense environment that demands people's best performance. They create stability so people are free to think and act boldly and focus on their work. So one thing, I think it's easy to fall into the trap of like, everything with multipliers is like sunshine and rainbows and there's never anything hard. That's, I think the more I read into this, it's not that. The multiplier or the leader does show they believe in you. They show that they support the team. But at the same time, there's high expectations. The performance is expected.
Yeah.
High performance is expected. And that's what kind of creates this tensed environment. And I think that that's so important for people to realize is this is not going to be like a walk in the park. This person is going to expect your best. And I don't know what book it's in. I want to say First Break All the Rules. Rob loves it when I just pull random things out of random
What page
books.
is it on?
I don't know. But he says something like, often when you expect the best out of people, the best is what you'll get.
Yeah.
And so a liberator, I think, does that. They expect the best out of their people. They create an environment where performance is expected, and then people live up to that, particularly if they feel supported and they feel believed in.
Yeah.
The opposite of that is a tyrant. They create a tensed environment that crushes people's ability to think and perform. They create anxiety, so people act cautiously and are afraid to speak up. So that's one where we feel the environment is less, it's less pressure, it's more stress. Not that we won't be stressed in a multiplier environment either, but it feels different.
Right.
It feels like all my moves are wrong. And I think that's where a liberator gets more out of people because they trust people to be able to do what they're asking them to do.
Right. Yep. So with those two really kick us off into what we're going to talk about today, which is the remaining three. And so the challenger, I love this one. And so this person helps identify the right opportunities and challenges everyone to get there. They seed ideas and let people stretch themselves to find the solutions. I love the idea of seeding those ideas out there for people and saying, hey, what do you got? What are you thinking about? And you help seed the opportunity for them to grow. And then I love the fact that whatever that opportunity is, it's like, all right, let's place that out there. Now, how are you going to get there? And a lot of times it stretches people. We've talked about it on previous podcasts, but if somebody brings you some type of problem or whatever it is, it's like, how do you foresee that we should maybe fix this and putting it back on somebody else's plate? I mean, a lot of times people are showing up and they kind of have an idea, but they're looking for you to make a decision. How do you become a multiplier? Put it back on them. And that helps them grow. And a lot of times the idea that they have is already pretty good. And so help people figure out what the problem actually is, help frame that for them. Maybe the book talks about challenging some of their assumptions, which really just looks like asking questions. I was talking to somebody in my office earlier this week about one-on-ones, just sitting there and help coaching somebody. And I know we've been in this debate with the operations team, just talking about what is a one-on-one, what is it supposed to look like? And this individual is like, is there like give me the formula, Rob? And I'm like, I've got good news. There isn't one. Like you're going to talk a little bit about personal. You're going to talk a little bit about work, and how you weave those two things together really comes with skills and experience over time. But the questions piece that this talks about, that truly is a skill. It's something that you can develop, but you have to focus on it with all things. How can I ask better questions? What am I missing here? There's typically something we're missing. I was telling this person, one of my favorite questions when somebody says something to me is, what do you mean? Because I can't just assume I know what they're talking about. And I don't know how many times, maybe the same thing for you. I'm like, what do you mean by that? And I think I know. And then they tell me and I'm like, I'm way off. But then I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. Shock. Like I was way off. So asking some of those really good questions to try to figure out what is the idea here? Where are we going with that?
Yeah, the quote I wrote down, I love a quote. The quote that is at the very beginning of that chapter is, the number one difference between a Nobel Prize winner and others is not IQ or work ethic, but they ask bigger questions.
Yes.
And so I thought that was, I also love too, she talks about in there, if you are the type of person who has trouble with this challenger piece, and we'll talk a little bit about how this works on the accidental diminisher side, is taking the extreme question challenge, which essentially means you may only ask questions.
Yeah.
Only
Have
questions.
you tried it yet?
No. But the example she gives in the book is about her kids at bedtime. And I love it. We're kind of past that point. It's kind of sort of in my house. I mean, my girls are pretty self-sufficient in that, but
you can do it for Michael. What time is it?
He would love that. But she talks about how when she would get home from work, I mean, this is a situation that probably a lot of people can identify with at home, but she would get home, then it would be like dinner time, you know, and then it's time for bed. And of course, everybody's tired. And of course, it's like, you know, here come the directives. And I am terrible about this kind of thing. Like, it's time for bed, brush your teeth, put more toothpaste on it, get your pajamas on, get a book out. I'm going to read the book. Like, right. Everything is directive. And the kids are kind of like lollygagging. They're not really, they're just
waiting for mom to tell them what's next.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is exhausting and takes a bazillion years. And so she said the extreme question challenge, she went home and it was time for bed. And all she did was ask questions. What time is it? What do we do first? And the kids were like, we get on our pajamas. Okay, what do we do next? We brush our teeth. How much toothpaste do we put on it? This much, you know, like, and I'm sure that that's not always going to go
right.
so perfectly. Which book are we going to read? Who's going to read the book? Okay, who's ready for bed? Not one single directive. Everything was a question.
You're saying that you can't use that on Michael?
I mean, I could.
What time is it? Who's putting the dishes away? Who cooked? Who's putting the dishes away? That would be that. You know, that would be such an interesting challenge to try. Even in what we do every single day.
Yeah.
I know we have to talk when we're teaching. But what would that look like in a coaching scenario? Just asking questions and just say, hey, I really want to see what's in your head. So you're going to notice that I'm going to ask you probably a lot of questions here in the next little bit. So just be prepared. But I want to know where you're coming from with this. And maybe preface that and then just try it. Try it. It's like, I'm going to ask 10 questions and see where this goes. I can always do better with asking more questions. But I found more and more when I'm talking to people, even with the, what do you mean? A lot of times you can go so much deeper than what they just said. You know, and you're talking about leading the softball team last season, 2 seasons ago, we would tell the girls, hey, here's the warm up. And me and the coach would walk over and walk them through. All right, we're going to do windmills. All right, this is what's next. This is what's next. Then it turned a little bit into who wants to lead it, but we would stand there and watch. My coach from this last season and this season has told them on the first practice, we are going to warm up exactly the same every single time. And you guys are going to lead it. So we'll help you on the first 2. Then it's up to you guys. So now practice is great. The first 10, 15 minutes. All right, girls, it's 6:00. Let's go. They go out there. They do their warm up. They do their throws. And then when they get done, all right, come over. We're going to do agility. Coach Rob has you. And so then we roll right into it. It all is on them.
Yeah.
You
and
know?
they're capable.
100%.
And it shows them that they're capable.
Yeah.
That they don't need someone standing there helping them navigate that. They can do it. Which then, you know, transfers. I feel like that belief, that agency, that belief in what they can do, I think that kind of transfers over to other things. So I think that it shows people that I believe when I ask you questions, I believe that you have the answer. I believe that you can figure it out. And I believe that you do not need me to tell you every single detail. Now that I do think that would be really difficult for me. Doesn't mean I shouldn't try it.
Well, make it challenging for you.
Well, because I like to give advice and I like to fix. I am 100% the advice trap. Is that what that book's called?
Advice Monster or whatever it is.
Yeah. I want, like, if you come to me with a problem, my first instinct is to fix the problem for you, which also is accidentally diminishing. But I think and I think a lot of us are that way. We want to fix and we want to help and we want to rescue. And so then our first instinct is to fix, not ask a question, not put the onus back on the other person. That's why it would be hard for me. And I think too, just because I haven't practiced enough questions, if the questions came more naturally, I think that I would do better with it.
I almost think with coaching scenarios, imagine the other person is going to be stranded on an island. And if I tell them everything to do, it doesn't help them think. But if it's like, look, the island gets hot and then it gets cold in this time of season, what do you think you would need to prepare for each one of those? Like if I could give them any tools, it would be, I want to help you think through these things versus let me tell you in every scenario what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I love that here at Morris-Jenkins, a lot of the stuff is like hire the person for their talents. We will train you the skills. But we're just looking for good people. But when we think about great technicians, great individuals that work here, whether you're on purchasing, warehouse, it's like you should be able to think for yourself and you should be able to make decisions. And at the end of the day, hey, if you're unsure, live our core values, do the right thing by the customer, the company and yourself, and live our values and you'll be fine. But I want people to think through it on their own.
Yeah.
And the only way, if I just tell them, I'm thinking for them.
Yeah.
Same thing with the toothpaste. It's like, how much should we put on there to brush your fangs? Like, yo, nasty little teeth, you've been eating Easter egg candy. Come on now.
Yeah.
Right?
They already know.
Yeah. And so the other piece, the diminishing side of the challenger is the know-it-all, which looks a little bit different. I ran into this a little bit today, but this is a person that asks questions to test your knowledge on things that they have expertise in. So it's like, hey, what do you know about X, Y, and Z? And I don't know a whole lot. Let me tell you all about it. And it's like, that doesn't make nobody feel good.
That ain't it.
Makes you feel good,
Yeah.
but it don't make them feel good. And they're like, I'm glad that you know a lot about that. This is easy if you have expertise in an area and you kind of become the expert in that, then people come to you and it feels good when they come to you for things. But what's not good is that you become that bottleneck.
Yeah.
So this is for everybody out there that maybe is a manager and you are really good in a certain area and everybody comes to you. Think about back to the island. The goal is not for them to come to you for the answer. The goal is to make sure that they have the answer with them always.
Yeah.
So how can you teach them to have that answer?
Like teach a man to fish.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I wrote down here for know-it-all too is they limit what their organization, team, kids, put in whatever you want right there. They limit what their organization can achieve to what they know how to do. The organization uses its energy to deduce what the boss thinks. So you're not using the energy for being creative and coming up with new ideas. You're always trying to figure out what the boss is thinking or what mom is thinking, or it's the energy is in the wrong place. And the team can only grow as far as the leader grows, not beyond that, because nobody's being challenged. And we're just staying within the confines of what the leader is capable of doing.
Right.
Whereas when you have a multiplier, the leader doesn't care. They don't care if the teammates are going above and beyond what they know. They want them to.
Right.
Because that grows the team, it grows the organization, it grows the people. So I think that's too where you kind of handcuff people when you're the know-it-all and you have people just stop thinking for themselves. They stop being challenged because you're just going to tell them anyway.
Right.
So I think that it is going back to not recognizing when you're doing it or not. You don't wake up that day wanting to diminish, but when you're the person with all the answers or the person with all the information, that's what it turns into.
Yeah. I mean, the challenger, challenging other people to be better, seeding the opportunity out there and asking questions really leads us into the next one, which is the debate maker. We have some really good debate makers around this place. It doesn't always feel good in the moment. We often talk about mining for conflict and, hey, what's the real challenge here? I like the challenger and the debate maker because these even tie back to a really good book, The Coaching Habit. Asking people, what is the real challenge here for you and what else, right? And you're really trying to get to the bottom of it. But the debate maker, it's somebody that brings people together, draw out what they know, and facilitate rigorous debate. Which, how many people out there do you know this? Like, I do not want to get into an argument about this. I don't want to do this, and then they want to give up early. And I know for me personally, when I first started working here, recognizing how many times we get into like debates about things, and it's not meant to diminish. It's really meant to get the best idea out on the table so we as a team can collectively utilize that idea. But I need everybody's input, thoughts, big, small. Adrian does a good job of that when, she's like, what are we missing here? Hey, what do you think? Is there any other avenues that we haven't explored yet? Hey, I haven't heard a whole lot from you. What are your thoughts on this? I think I walked by her office the other day. I just waved, and an individual was sitting in there, and they were talking about a direction. She's like, hey, let's pick Rob's brain. I'm like, I was just walking by. And so how can we bring people together to try to figure out what is the best idea to move forward? You got to frame the issue so that people know what we're attacking and then go after it.
Yeah. I kind of come back to weigh in to buy in. You have to have people, and I'm not on every single decision. Every single decision can't be, debated, and
Right.
I totally get that. But when we're making decisions, I go back to that saying, weigh in to buy in. We need people to weigh in order for people to buy in.
Right.
We may not go with that person's particular idea, or we may kind of pick and choose the different things and put them all together to come up with the best thing. But people feel heard. They feel like they've been at the table. They feel like they've been able to contribute. The quote at the beginning of this chapter was, "It is better to debate a decision without settling it than settling a decision without debating it." I was like, well, that's a tongue twister.
Liz knows what she's talking about.
But I do like the debate maker. I think, too, it leads to better decision making, right? On everybody's part, the leader included.
Right.
And I do think it also helps people execute said decision better. Because even if we didn't go with Rob's idea, or we took a portion of Rob's and a portion of this person's and this person's, now everybody feels like, if we go back to 5 dysfunctions of a team, everybody feels like now we're committed to this decision that we've made and we're going to move forward. Even if it wasn't my idea or I didn't love it, I've heard the debate, I've been a part of it. Now I know how to go out and commit and execute whatever it is, the decision that we've made.
Yeah.
I think when we send people away from the table unclear, that's kind of like a recipe for disaster, because then it's getting executed one way this way, and a different way this way, and this way. And so I think it kind of causes it's some trickle down effects when we don't leave the table kind of committed to the decision that was made.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway from the debate maker was the debate piece I've been a part of. I've seen it happens often, but framing the issue is something that it doesn't always happen just at the beginning. But, if you're in a debate, you can rabbit hole or squirrel over here, and then we're off track.
Yep.
And having someone that's good at bringing it back to, okay, hey, these are good ideas. Are they going to solve what is our problem here? Right? So the framing the issue piece, know that you might have to do that a couple times, because what the answer is at the end doesn't always solve the original issue. It might be a separate issue altogether that we need to debate about that, but we need to get back to our original conversation. And then once you have figured that out, the answers, who's taking action on what?
Right.
It can't just be debate for debate's sake.
Yeah.
That doesn't do anything for us. What action are we going to take? And then when are we going to check back in to make sure action has been taken?
To follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the opposite of a debate maker is a decision maker. A decision maker, they decide efficiently with a smaller inner circle, but they leave the broader organization in the dark to debate the soundness of the decision instead of executing it. So when we don't bring people to the table, or we make the decision ourselves, or with a small inner circle of people.
Right, the cult.
Right, my cult. It leaves everybody else to kind of make up the story on their own.
Yeah.
When we haven't been clear about how the decision was made and about how we're going to go forth with the decision, then everybody else just makes up the story in between.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you run into, wait, that's not what we said. That's not what we believe in. That's not what we should do, right? You kind of start having that piece come into play. So I do think that there are times when leaders and parents and everybody, have to make decisions. I'm not calling everybody in my family around the table to decide every little thing.
Right.
But I do think it is worth thinking about if this is going to have an impact, a trickle down impact to the other people, then it's important to get for people to have an opportunity to weigh in.
Well, if you think about it, if they don't have the buy-in, the way in to buy-in, and you make a decision and you come back, here's the decision that's going to be made. A lot of times people have, if they ask questions, if they do, you end up having to slow down to explain the why behind all this. And people don't always have buy-in to it. And the worst thing is if they say nothing and then they have what we call the meeting after the meeting. Yeah. And everybody goes and talks about it. And then that disseminates down into the organization. And then all of a sudden it's, well, I don't even know why we're doing this. But this is the this is the decision that was made.
Yeah.
That is the worst thing that you could do. And I know we have our rules of engagement as a team. And if you think about a team, it's like, hey, this is how we do things on the team. Here's how we have debates. Here's how we go through everything. We want to hear everybody's opinion. But once the decision is made on the team, then everybody's bought into it. And then it's like 100% agreement. We're going to chase after this. Because if you have 10 people on a team, a decision is made, 5 agree, 5 don't. And then you have separate parties go out. You have half teams are not in agreement or don't have buy-in. And then you just end up really affecting the outcome.
Yep.
So making sure that you put your 2 cents out there, give your opinions and thought while you're in the debate. And for those of you out there that are maybe a little bit more reserved, just put an idea out there or ask a question for clarity so that you know where it's coming from. But that debate, just know that conflict is neither good nor bad. It's how it's managed. And so debate is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be really great. But if you have a diminisher leading it, it cannot be good. I know that I'm making the decision. I want you to have the illusion that you have an opinion, but I've already made my decision. And good feedback is if you recognize that someone's walked in with a decision already being made, call them out.
Yep.
Talk to them about it.
It sounds like you've already decided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so decisions need to be both ways. People need to have their buy-in. And then once the decision's made, for everybody that's not, the one actually pulling the trigger to make the decision, but being a part of that and go all in on it so that you can give it the best chance of success. And if it fails, it's okay.
Yeah.
We can make an adjustment.
Yeah. I don't know if it's in When Goliaths Clash or in Crucial Conversations, or maybe they both allude to it, but I also think it's perfectly fine for a leader or a manager to come into a meeting and say, hey, I just want to let everybody know how the decision is going to be made for this. I would like your input. Let's debate it. Let's look at both sides. I do think that's another important thing too, is to make people take the side that they are not 100% committed to.
Right.
Make people argue both sides, because I think that then they will see different perspectives. But I think it's okay for somebody to come in and say, hey, this is how the decision is going to be made. I want your input today. I want us to debate it. I want to look at both sides. Ultimately, the decision lies with me. Just say it. Like, let's just be honest about how the decision is going to be made. I want your input. I'm going to listen to your input, but ultimately I am going to be the decision maker in this. That's one way a decision can be made. Another way a decision can be made is we are going to sit around this table until we all agree. That's consensus, right? That's how we're going to make this decision today, is we all have to be in agreement. You can vote. That's another way that a decision is going to be made. I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody just coming in and laying the groundwork for that. Today, we're going to debate this topic because I want to hear your input. Ultimately, I'll be the one to decide, or ultimately we will be the ones to decide.
Right.
But at least going into it, everybody at the table is crystal clear on how the decision will be made. Or maybe it's the type of thing where you come in and you just say, I'm going to make the decision on this, because there is sometimes where that has to happen.
Right. And ultimately the success or failure that lies on the person making that final decision.
Right.
And what's funny is sometimes people are like, I can't believe we're doing this. And it's like, okay, well, how about you lead it and you make the decisions. And if it doesn't work out, then you feel that pressure too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to happen, but it's like, if you feel that passionate about it, do it. I usually hear that in like games or whatever. It's like, if you could do it better, you do it then. But I know the feeling of having to lead something and it falling on your shoulders. You make all the decisions. I ran my son's football coach. He made some. He's amazing and he loves football. Does a great job coming up with these crazy plays, good ideas. just lives in that world. And we had 2 games where we lost, and he's like, I feel like he didn't say this, but it's like, I've lost my mojo. Rob, you got it. And I'm like, okay, you got the next game. I'm like, I don't watch football that much. I'm out here on defense. I can do defense. I don't know if I could do that. But the next game was like the championship game. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. But like knowing that every play that's called, everything falls on you. If I mess up, which I was terrible at, like we're doing 6-on-6. So I'm like, all right, Meredith, you're going to be here. Shallon, you're going to be here. Mark, you're going to be here. Sam, you're going to be here. And then I'm like expecting them to know. And almost every single time, Coach, where am I at again? And I'm like, I forgot where I put everybody else. I'm like, you go here. And Meredith's like, you told me to go there. I'm like, dadgummit. And then the referee's like, 5 seconds. It's the worst feeling ever.
Yeah.
But everything rests on your shoulders. So sometimes the gift and the burden of that as a leader, as a manager, is that does lie on your shoulders. And you take the success or failure. Mm-hmm. But as a team, your job is to help debate that so that you set that manager up for the best success, because you care not just about your own success, but the success of the team. Yeah. So being a good debater in that moment will help them, and then give them all the support and everything that you need, because that could be you one day, and that's what you would want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I think it is, one of the mindsets that I think is, does the responsibility ultimately fall with the leader or the manager? Sure. But I think one of the mindsets that we have to also work on is it falls on me, but let me surround myself with the people who are willing to take on the burden with me.
Right.
And then let me empower those people to take on that, I say burden, but it's not, it's the pressure of it or whatever you want to call it. But it's like, surround myself with the people who are willing to take that on with me, and then empower them to do it.
Right.
So that then I don't always have to feel like, as the leader or the manager, that everything falls. I trust the people around me to be able to carry some of this with me.
Yeah. And so in doing really these last 2, debate maker, being a good liberator, thinking about all those, I mean, that really leads us into the last piece, which is being an investor. Mm-hmm. And, as like you reading it at face value, it's like, okay, I'm investing in my people. They say share guidance, invest in others' success, but give back the ownership for results. It says like coaches with winning teams without jumping in to play the game. Mm-hmm. And I know she gives a lot of analogies in there, but I'll hear coaches on the field all the time. You can't swing for them. It's you do everything you can ahead of time, and ultimately the player has to perform. Mm-hmm. But how is the time prior to that? Are you asking great questions? Are you truly championing that person, helping them have all the tools they need to be great and successful? There's a ton of stuff that goes in the investor, and a couple of the ones that really stood out to me was establishing ownership up front. So if you're going to invest in your people, and it's like, I'm going to give you everything so that you can go up to the plate and swing, right up front, you need to establish ownership. This is you. I'm here to support you. Whatever you need, I'm going to give it to you. But I got to recognize what their abilities are, mm-hmm. and then let them know, hey, the accountability is going to be there, but I just need you to know that you own this. And then I love the fact that it says investing resources in them. If that's spending time, giving them things that they might need, support, whether it be with yourself or with others, establish that up front, and then be like, what do you need? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, imagine the empowerment that somebody would have that's like, hey, I believe in you. I'm going to let you run with this full bore. I'm going to be here. I got your back. Here's the problem. Frame it. What do you need from me? And then the hard part is the accountability part, but it's like, go get it. Mm-hmm. I feel like the momentum on the front end, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the momentum on the front end is like, let's go. And then you go like 2 weeks in, and then it's like, mm-hmm. like the steam can let off. So, I don't know. That's just my experience.
Yeah, 100%. I believe you have to have somebody. And I do think sometimes I feel like I'll go back. Don't let me forget to hand the pen back. I feel like sometimes too, this idea of accountability, I've talked with Shallon about this, and maybe you and I have talked about this before. I think sometimes too, this word accountability gets a bad rap. Because I think when we think of the word accountability, it's like, accountability. And it's like, you come into my office and you sit down here, I'm going to hold you accountable. And sometimes that is what accountability is. Sometimes that is, it's like you screwed up. We got to have a conversation. That is sometimes, but really I think that a majority of the time accountability could be just checking in. Like you're saying, this is yours. You own this. We're going to follow up I'm going to follow up in 2 weeks. And we're going to see where you are. In 2 weeks, you come to them and you say, all right, where are we with this project or with this thing that you're working on? To me, it kind of reminds me of like when we check in each week, like on the training team, we check in each week on each other's priorities. We have to code them red, yellow, or green. Well, if I'm red because I haven't worked on my priority, then the people at that table should hold me accountable.
Right.
What have you been doing instead of working on this project that you said was important? That's accountability. And it's not slapping people's wrists. It's having people take ownership. Like, to me, it's like, it reminds me of when you have to go weigh in at Weight Watchers. Like, every single week when you go weigh in at Weight Watchers, that's on you. You're the only person to put the food in your mouth.
I swear, I followed the plan. Yeah, you did.
So
you followed the plan times 2.
That to me that's accountability. And likely, just like when you step on that scale and it's done gone up 5 pounds in 1 week, I don't need anybody else to say anything else to me. And most people don't. Most people don't need anybody else to say anything other than that speaks for itself.
What if you have people that you give the accountability back to them, but then they maybe don't necessarily take it. Maybe they're just unaware that they're falling behind. How do you handle that?
Well, to me, I think that's when like the teaching and the coaching comes in. So like, let's say, for example, let's go back to the red, yellow, green of priorities. So if it's like, if I've been red for a week or 2 and I'm kind of acting a little bit nonchalant about it, like, oh yeah, I didn't really work on it, but it's like, it's going to get done. It kind of like you're saying, not recognizing I'm not doing enough, then to me, that's a separate conversation, between maybe you and the other person, where you start asking those questions. And why aren't you working on it? What does working on it look like? Because if you really dig down to it, there's some reason why they're not prioritizing that. To me, is if you see somebody's not working on it and they don't even realize they're falling behind, I think that's when some of that support and teaching and coaching comes in. Because somehow or another, you got to get them back on track.
What if they color themselves green and they think that they're doing enough, but you recognize that they're not?
I still think it's the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's wrong with meeting with that person one-on-one and saying, you've colored yourself green, but from my seat in the stadium, what that looks like is we're not going to accomplish this by the end of the quarter. Tell me how you plan on finishing this.
Yeah.
Let's just call a spade a spade. You're saying you're green, but it doesn't look like to me you're going to finish. Can you help me understand why we're not making more progress?
Yeah.
I sit here and say that right here, right now, like I can do that. That's not really what happens.
Y'all tag Meredith in on your next accountability session.
Yeah. But I think that's this, when you invest in people and you turn it over, you have to be prepared for the accountability piece. But then I also think people are scared of the accountability piece, but it doesn't have to be like slapping people on the wrist. It literally can just be like, hey, let's sit down and talk about your progress. What's going on? That's accountability too.
Yeah. That's
like stepping on the scale. That's accountability. And sometimes if the person knows they're behind, they don't need any more than you asking them a question.
Yeah.
Show me, or let's talk through. Show me is probably actually better. Show me what the progress that you've been making. I think that is accountability, but we don't always look at that as accountability.
Yeah.
So, okay, the other thing I want to say about holding the pen. Handing the pen back. That was one of the examples that she gave. This is another place where I struggle. I don't exactly remember all the details, but it was like the manager had turned over like a big account. Maybe it was like a marketing firm or something, and they were working on a presentation for a client. And they had maybe the person who was responsible, they weren't in front of the client yet. They were kind of brainstorming it as a team.
Right.
And the manager could tell that the person in charge, they were struggling with the idea generation or kind of fleshing everything out.
Right.
So she got up and took the pen. They were on a whiteboard, doing a whiteboard sesh. And what she talked about in the book was what she wanted to do was she wanted to hold the pen. She wanted to finish it out.
Yeah.
I'm taking the pen back. What we have to recognize is if we have to step in and we have to provide some coaching and some assistance and some help, eventually or sooner rather than later, we have to hand the pen back.
Right.
And I think she said, like, okay, it seems like we've got some momentum now. Everybody's kind of thinking and working again. I'm going to hand this back to you.
Right.
Like literally hand the pen back. Because I don't want people to think that when you're an investor, you just be like, go off, do your thing.
There is some involvement.
Yeah. Don't ask me for any help.
Yeah.
You may have to take it back over to get things back on track, but then you hand it back, which I do think I think that can be a struggle for some people.
Let's talk about what happens when you do hand the pen back and you see the failures coming. What do you do in that case? Like what's your ideas on letting things happen, take their course?
Well, that would get into how I accidentally diminish, because that's called a rescuer. And so a rescuer does not like to see people fail. And so they step in and they fix it, or they do something for them before it can fail. I do believe, and we've kind of talked about this before, like unless it's to the detriment of the team or the company, you have to let people fail.
Yeah.
I've watched people teach in many situations. This is not just here, where I have wanted nothing more than to stand up and take that pen. I'll take it from here. But you have to let people sometimes stand up in front of a room that they're supposed to be leading and guiding and teaching and facilitating, and feel the awkward silences.
Right.
Or feel what it feels like to have people talking over you. Sometimes you just have to let people stand up there and feel it, because if somebody else steps in and takes over, then you don't necessarily know how to navigate that, and it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
So as hard as that is, I do think that sometimes we have to let people fail.
How hard do you let them fail? Like, what are the stakes? Or is there like, I'm not going to let you fail in this case, but in this one I will. What does that look like?
I think for like an example I just gave is like, if I can see a lesson is going to hell in a handbasket, then I think that is, unless we're giving out wrong information. If it's like we're giving out wrong information, then that's different. Mm-hmm. We need to press pause. But if it's just like somebody's trying an activity and the activity sucks and people are not engaged and people are talking and they're not working, and
yeah,
I say we let it ride. Because the person that's facilitating needs to recognize, number one, I either didn't give good directions, I'm not facilitating this well, something I've done is causing an issue here. I think that's a minimal failure.
Right.
I think, like I said, if it's something that's major, like right now we're working really hard on supporting tech builders when they come out of class, because obviously it's hard to go out in the field and be all by yourself when you've been in this classroom with people to support you and lean on for weeks. So like that's the type of thing right now. I don't want to say that there's not one person in particular that's responsible for that, but right now what I'm feeling is that I won't let that fail. Mm-hmm. It's too important. It's too important to those people who we have brought to Morris-Jenkins, who we have invested time in. It's too important for that to fail. So we have said we're going to be with these people. We're going to check in with them and support them 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, all the way out. I'm going to put stuff on my calendar. I'm going to make whatever I can to make sure that doesn't fail. I could probably let it fail, because
or you can let parts elements
Yes.
of that process, maybe.
But to me, that's too important to let fail.
I get that.
Because that's letting all of those people down that we've brought here, and made promises to. I want them to feel supported. I want to show them everything that we have to offer them in that first year, so that they feel like they've made the right choice to join our team.
No, I can get down with that. And I'm sure that those individuals in this most recent class, I mean, they're getting the best version of what we've come up with so far.
Yeah.
And so I know that means a lot to them. And, if we're making promises here that this is going to be the best decision you've made in your life, we're going to create a career for you, we should. And it's tough. I wanted to ask that question because I think about our managers, our supervisors, people leading teams. Maybe it's a teammate. Maybe, you have a lead and assistant out there, and it's like, hey, I want to be a multiplier for my teammate, but how do I let them fail on a job when I'm at a customer's house? And I want them to learn, but I don't want to jack this stuff up. Brandon said something to me a long time ago when I was a supervisor. He says, look, it's okay if people fail as long as it's not detrimental to the organization or a customer. And so, if somebody's putting in a drop at somebody's house and they jack that up, that's not the end of the world. Leads. But if they're going to install something and it's going to cause a possible water leak in somebody's house, probably need to put the kibosh on that. And let's be like, let's rethink this before they turn the water back on. The supervisors and managers out there, it's like maybe somebody has a great idea on your team and, they want to go try something new, or maybe it's a new report or something like that. And it's like, I think if we do this report, it's going to take this amount of time. This is the date it's going to give me. And then this is what I'm going to do with the team. It's like, cool. How can I support you? Right. Invest in those people. And then let them go do their thing. But at the same time, if it's going to be detrimental to the team and it's going to cause poor culture and morale and all this stuff, maybe we need to guide it, maybe not in a different direction, but maybe make a tweak to that because it might be a great idea.
Yeah. Going back to asking those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've struggled with that in the past. Like there's certain things I'm like, I'll be willing to let that fail. And so somebody can learn, because sometimes those lessons are the best ones. But at the same time, I'm like, it is hard not to step in. It's like, please just let me help you.
Yeah.
I want to save that for you, but you're really actually making it worse for them. So the opposite of that is the micromanager, which makes a lot of sense. The investor invest. How can I give you the support? Reframing things, hold them accountable. The micromanager jumps in all the time, which I think we've said that throughout this whole thing. Well, I think we all know what a micromanager looks like and what it feels like. You mentioned some of the diminishers, and I did want to touch a couple of those, and then maybe we just wrap today up.
Yeah.
I know you said the rescuer was one of them. I think I probably should take the little test to see which one I might be there, but which one was it? I think sometimes I can be the optimist. I think she said in the book, she says, I mean, how hard could it be? Like, I feel like when things go down, I'm like, oh, we could do that. We could do this. This is easy. And my wife, I'm like, I have an idea. We should do this. This will be great. And then she grabs my little toes and pulls me back and puts me on the ground. I'm like, it's going to be fine. And she's like, you're not thinking about this fully. So when they talk about the optimist as somebody, it's always like, it's going to be great. It's going to be good. And maybe on a team, leading a team, whatever, if you're the optimist all the time, you got to recognize that not all things are going to work out like that. Maybe let's put our feet on the ground, and you can bring the positivity, but it's not all things are going to work out. You have to see that side too.
Yeah. It makes your people feel like you're detached from what reality actually is.
Yeah.
And so it's people, I think in that situation, people stop sharing with you because they know you're just going to turn it around and be like, oh, but this could be great. Let's talk about how it was going to be so great. And
shut it. It's like, I don't want to hear that right now.
And you're just like, no, I just want you to acknowledge the fact that this is freaking hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the optimist they of course think that they're doing the best by saying, no, this is great. This is an opportunity. And it probably is.
Yeah.
But really what people are seeking is just for you to say, this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
And just being realistic about what it's going to be like.
Right.
And so I think that's what happens is people feel like the optimist is they're not living in reality.
Yeah.
When really they just want somebody to say, yeah, you're right. This is going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's not one people would think would be a diminisher.
No.
I think it's when people take it too far or when that's always what you're doing.
Yeah, there were two of them that sounded similar. One accidental diminisher, which you wouldn't think would be one, is somebody that's always on. Like they're always jumping on things. They're always like you send them an email 5 minutes later, you get one back. And that could be a really good thing if you really need somebody. But if you're like that all the time, it can diminish people. You got to give people the chance to respond. And then the other one that sounded similar to it was the pace setter. The person's just gone all the time.
Yeah.
Like you are far out in front of your group. And you would think that people would try to pick up their pace to catch you, but in fact, it makes them want to slow down. She gave an example in there of how she would race her son to, I think it was from the house to the bus stop or from the bus stop to the house, whichever one it is. And her son would run with her, and she goes, every once in a while, I'd turn on the jets, and I'd leave him in the dust. And then I would get there, and I'd look back, and he's like, we weren't racing that time.
And he's
he'd be
walking.
upset. Yeah, he's like, I'm done. So just know, for those of you, if maybe you're the always on, responding quickly or diminishing by not letting people respond and do their thing or letting someone jump in, but then also the pace setter. Just because you're moving at a fast pace doesn't mean everybody is going to want to catch up with you. You might have some, but let other people take lead.
Yeah, this is something people should do. I did take the test, okay? And unfortunately, Meredith Cabana, you are likely an accidental diminisher.
Oh boy.
Womp.
You know where you were going when you took this test. That's going to tell you that you're probably one.
Yeah. So this is, I think anybody can take this on their website. You don't have to pay for it or anything like that.
It was on Multipliers website?
Yep. So, which I can put in the show notes, but I do think that this is interesting because it kind of, it goes through all of these, like Rob just mentioned, the always on, the optimist. I mentioned the rescuer earlier, the idea guy. The idea guy is the person who always comes up with the ideas, and we roll with this person's ideas. So then what that says to everybody else is stop coming up with ideas. We don't need your ideas. And a lot of us think and it is a strength. It's a strength to be able to come up with ideas.
Yeah.
When it becomes diminishing is when you're the only one coming up with ideas because everybody else is just relying on yours.
They kick back like she
Yep.
or he's going to come up
Let
with
her
an
do
idea.
it.
Yep.
So I do think that it is helpful to kind of see which ones of these you kind of lean towards. Of course, rescuer is one of mine. Perfectionist. Once again, here it is.
Let's just talk about all your problems.
Yeah. But I think that's when the leader expects perfection, or expects everybody else to do things the way they would do them. What it feels is like defeating to everybody else is like, I'll never be as good as you are.
Yeah.
I'll never do it the way you do it. And so people, like they don't know, they're afraid to try. They're afraid to do it because it's never going to be good enough.
Right.
And so we would think having those perfectionist tendencies or expectations would be good for people, right? You come up to my perfectionist level, but what we have to recognize is that that's not realistic.
And a lot of times you'll never get started. It's got to be perfect, or
Right.
you'll never finish. It's like,
Right. Yeah. So I think the accidental diminisher thing, like we've said, people listening to this are going to be like, I'm not a diminisher. I don't think anybody sets out to be. But I
Yeah.
think when you look at these accidental diminishers, you will be surprised at probably how many of those buckets you might fall into. You're doing the best that you can, and you think you're doing good, but some of those things can actually turn people off in the end. I also, too, I want to talk about my parenting thing here in just a minute, too, but I also wanted to say if you have, or how to deal with a diminisher, because she does have a chapter in here which is worth looking at about how to deal with a diminisher. So if you have someone that you work with or someone that, we've talked about the know-it-all, we've talked about the person who micromanages or the decision maker. We've talked about all of these things. Well, what do you do if that's the situation that you're in?
Yeah.
Some things that I kind of wrote down here. The first one is just asking, can I try this myself and ask you for help when I need it? Just assert yourself in that way. I'd like to try this project on my own with your help. And so I think if you're ready to do that, then do that. Just throw it out there and see how that goes. That's one thing. Turn down the volume on diminishing messages. We talked about this last time. A lot of times when someone is being a diminisher, it is not about you as a person. It is more about that person. It's more about the manager or the leader. It's that they can't let go, or that they like to control, or they have an innate mistrust of people. So a lot of times it's more about them than it is about you. So kind of turning down the volume on the messages you might be receiving that you're not good enough, or your ideas aren't good enough, or whatever that might be. And then I think strengthening your other connections. So if you have a diminisher that's on your team or your manager, then I think finding other connections on your team where you can build up each other and multiply each other in that way. Yeah. So, the fact of the matter is diminishers are out there. Otherwise, she wouldn't have written the book. So how do we deal with that when we encounter it, either on our teams or even in our families and our everyday life?
Yeah. No, I like that. The strategies in there were definitely good. There's so much. I know we're kind of hitting the highlight moments in this book, but there's so many other good things that are in these chapters that are things that are key takeaways for you guys. Strategies on how to deal with diminishers. If you're trying to become a multiplier, if you recognize that maybe you have some diminishing qualities, what's stuff that we can do here? And I know you said you had something for I've been thinking about that the whole time. Tell us about
the parenting. Yeah. So we talked about the 5, I guess you would call them traits of a multiplier: the talent magnet, the liberator, the challenger, the debate maker, and the investor. So they basically just turned it over and said, look at it from a parenting lens. So a talent magnet: recognize and nurture your child's unique talents and abilities. So they may not be the same as yours, just FYI, right? I played volleyball, basketball, and softball. I was an athlete all through college and in high school. That's not what we got at my house. And so what I've had to do is step back. Like, Milo's super into fashion now. I know nothing about that. Nothing. That's not my jam. I don't do that. It's not ever been something I've been interested in.
Yeah.
That's something that she likes, and she does have her own style about her. I have to get over the fact that she's not going to be an athlete, and I have to tap into the fact that this is something that she's interested in and something that she likes.
Yeah.
So I think that's being the talent magnet. Recognize what they have, what they're interested in. The liberator, and I think this is a big one: allow your child to think for themselves, trust them to make decisions. And quite honestly,
good luck with that.
and quite honestly, you get to a point, we're at that point with Mila because she's 15. At some point, I'm going to have to trust that I've done the best that I can.
Yeah.
And
at some point, you got to let go.
And she's going to have to start making some decisions on her own. I think the sooner we can start sprinkling that into our parenting, probably the easier it might be to make the transition when they're in the teenage years. That's not what I did, so this has been tough. But let them think for themselves. Challenger: push your child beyond their comfort zone. Because just like us, they will gladly live in it all the time. Mm-hmm. And so kind of pushing them beyond that. Like, I think about Leah, she swims. So I guess I did get
an athlete.
I did get one athlete out of this. Like, she swims. And so, there are strokes that are not her favorite. And so she doesn't want to compete in those strokes when she goes to competitive meets. So I guess this is not really me, but it's her coach. But he signs her up for those events anyway, pushing her outside of her comfort zone. Yeah. And at the last meet, he put her in the backstroke, and she finished first in her heat.
Look at that.
And so it's like,
how's she feel about that?
You know how they are. She's like, ugh.
I can't believe you made me do
Yeah. Yeah. But then she's like, did you get a picture of the board that said I finished first? I'm like,
I didn't think you cared about that straight.
That's right. Okay. Debate maker, foster open and constructive conversations. I think that this goes back to, we talk about in conflict a lot of times. Most of us don't know how to navigate conflict because we never did any of that when we were growing up. And so like let them see that having a conversation back and forth, looking at different perspectives, that's normal.
Yep.
And we should be doing that. And then last, investing your time, your coaching, your feedback, and opportunities, obviously, for your kids. I think I think we all want to do that as much as we can, be an investor in our kids, but it's, thinking about how am I doing that? How am I giving them feedback or coaching them and helping them to think for themselves more often. So I just liked how, we've talked about a lot of this through a manager or leader's lens, but it's so applicable in lots of other parts of our lives.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought about it in the parenting aspect, but I think that's whether you're a parent, whether you're a teammate, husband, wife, anything, being a multiplier can be something that can take you to the next level in life. And I feel like, even as a parent, thinking some of these I'm like, oh, I feel like I might be able to do that. And then others I'm like, I really need to work on that. Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Yep.
It's good. So hopefully today for everybody, part 2, this is our first part 1, part 2, about a topic. Hopefully it was good for you guys. Hopefully y'all were able to take a couple of things away. I know some of the stuff that really stood out to me, throughout this, there's many different types of multipliers out there. Some may come more natural for you, and some of them maybe you have to work out a little bit. But every multiplier has that magnetic opposite where maybe I'm a talent magnet or maybe I'm an empire builder, and we can have characteristics of both. And there's things that we got to watch out for. But it sounds like today a lot of what we grabbed was asking really good questions, challenging people. It's okay to debate a little bit. Weigh in to buy in. Can I do this in my personal life with my family, with my teammates? And then recognize there's a whole slew. I didn't count them all. It seems like there's like 9 or something like that of accidental diminishing behavior. So we got to watch out for that stuff. So I get to say it this time. It's in the library if you want to check it out. This is actually the library copy, and it's going back in today. Yeah. So if you guys want to grab that, you're more than welcome to.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's worth checking out. It's also, you can listen to the audiobook. It's also on Spotify. If you have Spotify, then you can check it out there as well. So hopefully everybody has taken away some good things from these 2 episodes. We appreciate you guys listening. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I always feel like I'm going to forget to say that now. Subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode.
And if you need someone to be in a cult, that's your girl right over there.
I just need some rules to follow, y'all.
She'll be in the mall.
In the back room talking about aliens. All right, guys, have a wonderful 2 weeks until we see you again. Peace, love, and easy does it.
Hey, appreciate y'all.